will be watching, maybe not, but I just wanted to touch base here live on my cell phone to say hi to everyone, to talk a little bit about what I've been up to. As you know, traveling, Scott Ritter and and I am in, to Turkey, and from Turkey to Moscow, and here we are. Well, Russia, but Moscow right now. So today we went out and we went to a place in called Rzhev, which is kind of spelled RZ, I think VEH. And what that is a small town. Apparently, there was some huge, um, let's see, chat. I wonder if I can't see the chat, but I'm just going to suppose maybe there's people in there. Maybe I can push a button here. Maybe not. See anything that says chat? Maybe I can't see it. At any rate, so let me continue. And we went out and we saw a World War II memorial, and it was about this huge battle where like 1 million or 2 people, somewhere between, I've heard numbers somewhere between 400,000 and 2 million people died in this battle. And we went to, look at the memorial. There was a gigantic I mean, this thing looked like, I mean, I'm being facetious here, but it looked like the Statue of Liberty. You're driving from like miles away and you see this big thing sticking up in the air, and you get there and it's like a Russian soldier. And the bottom of him, it's weird, it looks like birds, right? And when I get there, I realize that it is turned into cranes. That he, like, as he gets to the bottom, he's turned into cranes. Well, in Russia, there's this song, and it's about that. It's about, it has to do with ancient Russia, where they believe that when you died, your soul was released and turned into a crane and flew off into the sky and, flew away, right? So there was an ancient Russian belief. And apparently, they still kind of, it's not that they believe that, but they use that kind of metaphor to respect the dead, particularly when it comes to the soldiers. And they feel like, okay, the soldiers have, sacrificed for us, sacrificed for the good of the whole, and therefore, their souls are released for the good of the whole. It's metaphorical, but it's pretty cool. So we went there and checked that out. I tell you something I find interesting, and that is the people here, and this is weird, they know Scott and I, and they watch our videos, and they're like, yes, Garland Nixon, Scott Ritter, they know Scott, of course, but it seems like a lot of them know me too. And apparently, there are video places, there's video outlets here. I know on YouTube, there's a place called, oh, what the hell is it? Someone watch my videos. There's one called Russian Accent, where they take my stuff and they redo it and dub it in Russian. And so, I mean, I've seen some of that stuff has a couple million, literally millions of views, millions of views. When I get there, as far as my stuff, I didn't realize it, but I mean, if you counted Russia, I'm beating all the big guys over there, but they don't count Russia. And so that's that. Something interesting before I get going with this video. I'm shocked I'm on with my phone. And you may say, why is Garland on with his phone? He's never on with his phone. Well, there's a reason I'm on with my phone. So I did a video for an hour yesterday. This is just an aside. I did a video for an hour yesterday when I got back last night. I said, okay, I had my computer set up. So I get back here and I say, all right, I'll do an hour video when I get back. Get on my computer. I can't access YouTube at all. Can't access it. I finally get on YouTube and it says, you're not connected to the internet. But I get on everything else but YouTube. Okay, well, great. That's fine. I use StreamYard so I go on StreamYard and I'm able to get on StreamYard. And I say, okay, that's great. I'll just go right through StreamYard, go to YouTube, right? Go in another room or something, come back in here, and I go to set up StreamYard. Boop. Can't access StreamYard anymore. Now I take out my my iPad. Oh, let me see what I can do on here. Ain't accessing StreamYard. Not accessing YouTube. So on my cell phone, I could access YouTube, and it may be, I guess maybe it's going through Verizon. I don't know, whatever, right? So then I check, and so now on using the same exact networks, trying on the same networks, right? I can't access YouTube. So I'm shut down. I can't access anything. I'm shut down from streaming, but luckily I can still stream on my YouTube on my phone, but I don't know how long that's going to last, so we shall see. I'll put it like this, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but I can do it yesterday, but I can't do it today. And oddly enough, I got my cell phone and it's on, but can't access it on my computer, and it's acting real weird. And I can access all this other stuff. Oh, it's working great. Oh, I know. I'll go to StreamYard. Oh, what do you know? I'm not even, it says you're not online. Oh, let me try YouTube. What do you know? It says I'm not online. So let's just say for whatever reason, someone's decided whatever it is. But whatever the case, I'm here on my phone until I'm not. Hopefully I'll be home sometime at some point, or the 17th or whatever. We'll see what happens then. But let me continue. So one might ask oneself, okay, Garland, you went to Moscow. Big deal. One schlump has went to Moscow. So what what does that matter? And I'm, me, I'm an intuitive kind of person, right? I can't tell you what I've learned. I can tell you that I went here, and that I talked to people, and that I saw things, and I felt a certain way, right? But just like if someone asks, if you eat something for the first time, you're like, that tastes really good. And someone would say to you, why does it taste good? And you're like, I can't answer that. A young guy sees a woman, and she's the woman of his dreams, and he's like, oh, that's the woman. I want to marry her. I want to have 2.5 kids in a minivan. And someone says, really? What is it about her that you find so pretty? And he might look at her, and if he tries to evaluate it, he says, well, I don't think she's pretty. She doesn't have the greatest shape in the world. She's not the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but for some reason I really like her. To me, she's pretty. So this young guy sees this woman, and he's attracted to her, and nobody else might not think she's pretty. And he may not even be able to explain why. Or vice versa, could be a woman with a young man, and they can't tell you why. And do they need to? No, there's no reason to tell you why. Ooh, I don't like the taste of this. Why? I don't know. I don't have words to tell you. I just know that when I put it in, I find that unpleasant, right? My point being, I accept that because I study Zen. I accept that there are parts of us that can pick up things, that can learn things, that we can feel a certain way, that we have intuitions, and we may not be able to answer why we do that. And there is no need to answer why we did that or why we feel that. Why do I do all of that tomfoolery? Talking about my trip to where the heck this town I was in, Rizhev, and talking to the people in Moscow, having the discussions that I'm having, and eating far too much of things that I probably even shouldn't be eating. I don't eat a lot of sweets, and here I am eating an apple pie with cinnamon. Then you're on the road, you got to screw up sometime, right? Anyway, let me continue. Let me just say this. Oh man, when you're going to screw up, do it at a good restaurant. That's all I'm going to say. When you're going to screw up, get some Italian food with lots of olive oil and basil and all those kind of things. When you're screwing up, get yourself some apple pie with some rum flavored ice cream and pine nuts and cinnamon. If you're going to screw up, man, don't half-ass it. That's all I'm saying. If you're going to, people know me, I'm kind of a health nut, but I ain't a health nut right now because I'm enjoying my trip. Anyway, so let me continue. Somebody said, can I do some tourist type uploads, maybe some walk and talks, greetings from Scotland? Well, I'll give it a shot. unless I'm cut off by some 3-letter agency as I am now. Well, maybe they'll let me do it on phone. I don't know what the hell, but I'm going to give it a shot. Okay. Anyway, so let me continue. So I can't tell you what I learned, but I can tell you what I felt. Okay. And to me, what you feel is a lot more important than what you learn. That proverbial young man or young woman I was talking about that just saw the woman, or in the woman's case, the man of her dreams, whatever the case may be, and they can't tell you why they're attracted to that person, but they are. They don't need an answer because it's there and they don't care, so don't ask them. And likewise, what I feel from this, I can't tell you why I feel it, but I'm going to tell you what I feel, okay? And I'll try to describe it, and what the hell, maybe it'll come out. Okay, how's the sound okay? Sound good? Somebody said I said walking, not talking YouTube. I'll give it a shot. Who knows? We'll give it a shot. Great, Alex Cristoforo, I think is hilarious. I like him. Clown World, Alex, right? Anyway, let us continue. Well, number one, I ask myself, in walking around, right? And it's like anywhere else, in driving around and looking at the Russian people, right? And they're just people. They're doing their thing. They're working on the roads. They're fixing roads. They're wandering the streets aimlessly at times. They're walking around with little teeny children holding hands, and the kids are doing kid stuff, right? It's cute little kids. There's, people everywhere. It's a beautiful city. Moscow's an incredibly beautiful city, right? The lights everywhere, the architecture is, I mean, without equal. And I say without equal, I just mean in its own way. In the same way that apple pie is without equal until you like cherry pie, or if you like, whatever you like, right? It's just absolutely, it's my way of saying it's absolutely gorgeous, right? Lights everywhere, modern city, clean. I just came in, there's some guy out there and he's in the middle of the night sweeping leaves or something up, right? They keep the place real nice. So it's a wonderful city, beautiful city. And the people are just people. They're just Russian people. And the first thing I ask myself is, what the hell is up with the European ruling class, political class, and ruling elite? These people are friggin' nuts. It's like, here's what I thought to myself: why the hell is it every time there's a world war, every stinking time there's a world war, you look and there sits England, Germany, and France. Not Russia. Russia's minding its own business. They're trying to eat their Russian food. They're trying to walk around with their Ushankas. I got one of those Ushanka hats. It's a souvenir. What the hell is it? Check this out. I bought this. I had to get this. I'm in Russia. The souvenir. It was at a World War II soldiers memorial, so I got a World War II soldiers hat. I guess I'll stick it up in my room somewhere. So I'm going to wander around with that thing on, but I mean, I'm just saying it's cool, right? A nice souvenir. But Germany, France, and England, there they go again. The Anglo-Saxon Empire. And by that, I don't mean the people, because the people never want war. I mean the political class and the ruling elite. And, I go online, and every time I go online, it's some idiot from Germany. Yes, some general from Germany. Literally, I read this article today. Some idiot from Germany is like, yes, the Russians might attack us. Literally, some friggin' mutt general from Germany said the Russians might attack us as early as Friday. And I'm thinking, well, it's Saturday. Maybe he means next Friday. He probably said it. I think he said it Thursday, right? Well, Friday's gone and they didn't attack us. And I'm around the Russians. And trust me when I tell you this, they ain't attacking nobody. So the question you must ask yourself when it comes to Germany and France and England, these three totalitarian states, right? These three absolutely insane, lunatic, fascist, totalitarian ruling class, political class states. One must ask themselves not whether Russia's going to attack them, because clearly the answer is no. Whether Russia wants war with them, because clearly the answer is no. One must ask oneself, why the hell do they keep saying Russia's going to attack us? And Russia's like, well, we don't want to attack you. Shut up. Yes, you are. Actually, no, I'm really not. Yeah, you are. And I mean it. So don't attack us. And Russia's like, well, that's easy. All we got to do is what we're doing now. We're not attacking you, and we're going to continue doing that, right? And here's the really, I'll use this word, the evil part of it when it comes to France and Germany and England. I'm leaving the United States out because I'm in Europe. I'm going to talk about Europe. Here is the really evil thing about it, okay? It's not that they're saying these things because they're somehow believable. Because they're like, we're really afraid of the Russians. They're going to come get us. That ain't the case. It wouldn't be evil. It would be stupid then. There's a difference between stupid and evil. If they were ignorant, if they were just afraid and frightened of the Russians, it would be really, really stupid, because all you got to do is come to Russia and wander around, and it gets really obvious the Russians are not intending to attack anyone, right? But here's the problem with the ruling elite in Europe. They know the truth. See, that's what's truly evil about it. It's not stupid, it's not ignorant, it's not confused, it's truly evil. They know the truth. All you have to look up is the Minsk Accords. Why, Garland, you may ask? Garland, how do these people know the truth? What do you mean they know the truth? They don't know the truth. They really are stupid. They're ignorant. They're really frightened of the Russians. They think the Russians are going to kill them. That's a lie. Why? How do we know this? Because they're the ones that overthrew the government in Ukraine. Do you recall this? Victoria Nuland. Have you ever heard that recording where Victoria Nuland was like, yes, we're naming the new government of Europe, and it's going to be this guy. Well, how about this guy? Nah, that guy's a schmuck. What about that guy? Oh, now, this is before the government of Ukraine fell. The State Department of the United States was saying who the new government in Ukraine was going to be, but they weren't just naming the new government. They weren't just doing that. They were evaluating who they believe would be best. So with the US government, if it's a dignity, if it's all about a revolution of dignity and all of that stuff, then why would the United States be naming the new government when you don't even need a new government because the old one hadn't fell in a violent coup yet? Number one. Number two, in that conversation, one of the things that happens is Victoria Nuland, who was one of these assistant secretary of evil state, but I repeat myself, said, she mentioned somebody, and Jeffrey Pyatt said, who was the ambassador to Ukraine, well, what about blood? The EU's not going to like that. And she said, F the EU. In other words, I got no respect for the EU. And we're the ones naming them. We don't care what they want. This is about what we're trying to accomplish. We don't care. Now, think about this, though. Dig into that statement just a little bit. Jeffrey Pyatt said, the EU, follow me here. Victoria Nuland is naming the new government in Ukraine, right? This is who it's going to be. So clearly, they were involved in getting rid of the old government. In that discussion, her and Jeffrey Pyatt are discussing what who the political class in Europe and the EU would or wouldn't like. Well, that implies something obvious, doesn't it? It implies that the EU felt that they should have some say in who the new government is. Which clearly implies that the EU knew that the Americans were naming the new government, which means that the EU was in on deposing the old government. They were in on overthrowing the government. So what are they called? The revolution of dignity? Dignity was a lie. You were in on naming the new government. How can you possibly say that it was an organic revolution? I mean, and you had nothing to do with it. You knew nothing about it when the people who are naming the new government were discussing your input, EU. Now, let me add further to show their lying. France and Germany, I guess England, I don't know what the hell ever with England, but at minimum, France and Germany were involved in negotiating a cessation of hostilities between the clearly Russian-backed separatists in Ukraine, eastern Ukraine, and the American Anglosphere-backed fascist Banderites out of Kiev, Western Ukraine. So they made a deal. France and Germany were two of the countries that backed the Minsk Accords. They backed a deal. Now, am I supposed to believe that the Brits knew nothing about it? Of course, they all did it together. Now, afterwards, Angela Merkel, Petro Poroshenko, former Ukrainian puppet leader, both said the same thing. We just did that to give Ukraine some time to get armed. But they were the ones arming Ukraine. We just it gave us some time. So basically, here's the truth. We're just doing that to give us time to get some weapons. It was the old saying about diplomacy being the art of saying nice doggy until you can find a rock to hit the dog in the head and kill him. To get the dog to keep his head, quiet down, dog. Please don't bite me. Please don't bite me. You get a rock, bam, you hit him in the head and kill the dog. That's all that was. And they've admitted that. So now, when you put those two factors together, number one, clearly they had input in overthrowing the government and who the new government was going to be. Numero uno. Number two, they were the ones who negotiated a cessation of hostilities with the Russians and guaranteed it on their word. So here's my point. That was part of this conversation, an important part of this conversation. And that is that the Germany, France, England, the leaders here, the coalition of the willing, right, are lying about everything. They're lying about everything. And when they say, Russia's out to get us, they know it's a lie. They know it's all a lie. When some German general comes out, frog marching around, goose stepping all over the place, with his, I guarantee you, you shake his family tree, more Nazis will fall out than walnuts out of a walnut tree, right? And these people are like, I think Russia's going to attack us Friday. They damn well good know Russia ain't going to attack them Friday. They know it. They know Russia ain't going to attack them next Friday. Why? Because they know they're lying about everything to their people. They're saying, we're doing the right thing. Russia is a threat. Really? Russia's a threat. Is Russia on your border or are you on Russia's border? Is Russia pumping money into, I don't know, Mexico to come after the United States? Ireland, try to overthrow army. We've got to arm Wales. I don't know what the hell. No, they're not. They're saying, get up off our backs. You're surrounding us with bases. And what these countries are saying is, we can surround you with all the bases we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. And of course, Russia's saying, well, there's only one way to resolve this. If you don't want to talk about it, then we're not going to let you choke us out. We're not going to allow the boa constrictor maneuvers that you like to build bases around and around us, which, might I add, wouldn't work anyway in the new kinetic version of warfare, because we're the Americans to go to, or the West, whatever you want to call it, the fascists, the Banderite leaders, to decide to actually go to war with Russia. In about 5 quick seconds, every one of their bases would be vaporized with Oreshniks. We know it. Those bases used to be symbols of strength. We're surrounding you with the bases, but now with the technology of missiles, they're just a big fat target. They're just a vulnerability. They mean nothing. Those bases surrounding Russia means nothing. You know what they mean? They mean that if you go to war with Russia, everybody on those bases dies first. Put everything you want on those bases, because you ain't going to have it for long. Wouldn't you? If somebody surrounded you and you had the military technology, I'd have every inch of the base would be covered with every target. Okay, this is where they store the weapons over here. This is where they got their underground shelters for planes. This is where every one of those would be targeted. And in the event that they were to go to war, in about 5 seconds, I'd have pushed enough buttons that there would be nothing on any of those bases bigger than a quarter. I was a hovercraft pilot, and we used to keep the hovercraft at this Coast Guard yard. We had a ramp there because hovercrafts are amphibious. And they had this guy, and you talk about a clean freak. Woo! And that Coast Guard, you could eat off the floor anywhere in that base, right? But the guy used to literally have people walk around the Coast Guard yard, and he had this little circle the size of a quarter, and they had to look through the dirt, and any rocks that were too big to fit through that little circle, they had to throw them in like a wagon and take them over in the woods or wherever and throw them away, dispose of them. You couldn't even have any rocks in the dirt bigger than the size of a quarter. So tell me this guy wasn't out of his mind. Why do I say all of that? If the Russians were in fact attacked by the usual suspects of lunatics, France, Germany, and England, on all of the bases surrounding them, in about 5 minutes, you could take that little round metal circle and walk around the bases, and there wouldn't be any military equipment that wouldn't fit through that ring the size of a quarter. It would be Oreshniked to pieces. It would be Iskander. It would be, of course it would. First of all, I don't want to see war because I don't want to see people die. I'm an American. I don't want to see Americans. I don't want to see anybody. Russians. I don't want to see nobody die. And by the way, minutes after that war started, we'd all be gone. We'd all be finished. So, that's the really stupid part of it, because these people have lost their fear of nuclear annihilation, right? That was for a long time. It was like, we can't possibly go to war because we'll all be nuked. And now they're like, screw it. Let's get nuked. That's the political class. Screw it, man. We hate the Russians. What's the worst that can happen? We'll all be nuked and everybody in the world will die. Yeah, we'll be all right. And then we'll get them later, right? That's the way these people's minds are. Yeah, we'll all be nuked. Sure, certainly. And everybody will die, and this planet will just be a smoking pile of ashes. But you know what? But we'll have defeated the Russians. I don't know what the hell. I don't know where you go from there, but that's where these people are. Okay? So they're lying through their filthy, stinking teeth that they think the Russians just woke up one day and hated democracy. No, you know better. That the Russians are going to attack them. They know better. Let me talk about that a little bit. How do I know better? Why do I think the Russians aren't going to attack them? Why? Why, Garland, do you think the Russians aren't going to attack them? Let's start here. In going to the memorials, in talking to the Russians, I pick up something intuitively in listening to Russian people and seeing, first of all, before ever going to Russia, I knew, you know what? Russians lost a hell of a lot of people. They took a punch. They took a punch. Now they can take a punch. I've talked about, a self-defense, you're right, and all that stuff. But here's my point. Oftentimes in a fight, or a person who's trained in self-defense, one of the first things they learn is how to take a punch. You got to take a punch. As I've said, if you get in a fight, most people, if somebody gets that hand, whoa, and they go sideways with it, pow, and you look, and one finger's heading in, all three hands are heading in the east, and this finger's heading to the west, it'll throw most people into shock and they won't want to fight anymore, right? But a trained fighter, he thinks like this: I got to go home alive, and I don't care what injuries I have. I'm going to keep fighting until I can't fight no more, because this is about my life. A trained person who's trained in self-defense is only going to get in a fight if he's defending his life or the life of his loved ones, families, friends, whatever, right? So a person who's fighting under those circumstances, I don't care how bad you hurt them, they almost can't feel pain. They're going to keep coming, because a person, whose life is on the line, that person's going to give everything they possibly got. I don't care if they're cut. I don't care if their eyes poked. I don't care if something's broke. It doesn't matter, because the only thing left for them is death. So that's the person that's going to fight, right? Here's what I'm saying. The Russians lost 27 million people, but they had to keep fighting. Why? Because otherwise the Nazis overrun them. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Banderites lately. If you didn't know what the Nazis were like back then, look at the Banderites in Ukraine right now. If they could, they'd kill all Russians. They're getting the hell knocked out of them on the battlefield. They're getting the crap beaten. Do they have some drones? Yes. Are they killing some Russians? Absolutely. They're killing some people in Russia. Absolutely. But on behalf of NATO, they're getting their asses torn to shreds. I mean, just the fur torn off of their asses by the Russians, right? But I don't care. As long as they get to fly some drones, instead of attacking, look, think about wasting the drones. So they got drones. And instead of using the drones they have to attack the Russians, that would be the wise thing to do, right? The wise thing to do, if I'm you, is this. First of all, I'm in a fight with you, and you attack me, I'm fighting you. Let me ask you this. Am I going to punch your buddy? Am I going to say, hey, there's your TV screen, and I'm going to take a break and hit your TV screen? No, I'm going to fight you. You're trying to hurt me. I'm not going to key scratch your car while you're pummeling me. I'm going to attack you. But what do? Ha, 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 we'll fix them. We'll kill some civilians in Donetsk. Why? Because they get off killing Russians. Because it's not even, to these Banderites, it's not about a war to win or lose. It's just like, oh, killing Russians is great. We want more Russians dead. Did you hear, what's his name, Lindsey Graham, fascist like that? Yes, we're killing Russians, and it's not costing us anything. We haven't lost troops. Now, if you were to say to him, Ukrainians lost a couple million people, you know what he would say? I don't give a shit about the Ukrainians. They ain't humans to me. They're cannon fodder. That's their job. What part of we're fighting to the last Ukrainian didn't get through, right? Okay, we're fighting the last Ukrainian, and there's Ukrainians left, and eventually we'll run out of them, and that's when we'll stop. Maybe the Romanians, Moldovans, we don't give a crap. Screw all of those Europeans. How interesting is that the Americans see not just the Americans, the ruling elite, the political class, do this differently. Let me approach this differently. The Euro-American Anglo empire ruling class see the working class and regular people in their own countries through the same lens that they see the Banderites and all other working people. You see, to them, first, there's a reason they call them globalists, because they don't give a crap about their own country. They don't have any own country. They don't, I love my country and I want my country to prosper. They're literally blowing up their own infrastructure, Nord Stream 1, 2, whatever. They're cutting their people off from getting decent prices for energy. They don't give a crap about them. If they did, would they say, we got to cut off from more oil? What's going to happen? The working class are going to lose their jobs. Anything else? Who cares? I don't know. They'll suffer. They'll die. What do we care? They're the working class. Let them die. We're the ruling elite. We'll still be doing pretty good. Screw them. Throw some more of them at the Russians, right? These people see the Banderites, see the working class in their countries and in Ukraine as what's the word I want to look about? Expendable assets. Okay, and right now they're expending the Ukrainians, and they'd be happy to expend the others if they get a chance, right? And looking at the Ukrainian, the Banderites, they've been brainwashed into lunacy, and so they're like, as they're getting thrashed on the battlefield, they're like, "Hey, we're getting thrashed on the battlefield. What do you think we can do?" Well, I think we can still. Can we kill some Russians? That would feel great. I like killing Russians. Any Russians, Russian civilians. So let's do that. Now, what do Russians understand from that? These are the same people we fought in the 1940s. And if they could get away with it, they'd be more than happy to kill 27 million Russians. In fact, they'd kill them all if they thought they could get away with it. Just, all you got to do is look at what's happening in Gaza. That's who these people are. That's the other arm, that's the other leg of the stool, shall we say, of the three-legged stool. Leg one is Taiwan, and if those poor bastards allow themselves to be thrown at China, just like a Ukraine is being thrown at Russia. I mean, the poor people of Taiwan. If you allow the United States, after looking at Ukraine, I don't want to get too far off subject, but after looking at Ukraine, I'll just say this to the people of Taiwan: if you let those bastards throw you at China, you got it coming. If you see that, if you sit there and like, oh my God, ooh, look at what's happening in Ukraine. Ooh, yeah, that's going to hurt. Yikes, right? Hey, to the last Ukrainian. And they're literally, Lindsey Graham is literally, while you're watching what they're doing in Ukraine, you're looking over there aghast. Oh my God, look at that. Ooh, another Ukrainian. Yikes, right? And Lindsey Graham literally says, well, if this happens in China, we expect Taiwan to fight to the last Taiwanese too. And I'll be on TV saying, yes, we're killing Chinese. And we didn't even lose a single American soldier, which won't be able to say. But anyway, if you're in Taiwan and you watch this crap, and you're still like, yes, I think we're going to get independence, and America's going to come fight with us. If that is true, and I don't believe it's true, so I'm going to say this only because I don't believe it's true. If that's true, Taiwan, then you have been selected by the universe to go away. Now, that's unfortunate, but just like a dodo bird, you know, they called it a dodo bird because it didn't understand the concept of humans as a predator. So when humans came to the islands and they're like, hey, look at those birds, they're big, kind of tasty, and they got oil and stuff, we can kill them. And they went and bopped one in the head. And the others just kind of stood there and they're like, oh, and they're easy to kill. And they just kept killing them. And the dodo birds were like, la, 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 la. Oh, bat, right in the head, need another one, right? Until they were gone. And at that point, it's unfortunate. Didn't want to see that happen. It's terrible. But one could also make the more grand argument, for whatever reason, that the universe selected them for extinction. We'll be selected our time. Everything gets selected for extinction sooner or later, right? But that was the time that the dodo birds were selected by the universe. Call it fate, call it reality. I don't care. But in this universe that they popped up, they unpopped up. And as just as we popped up, their time will come and we unpop up, right? All that is to say, Taiwan, if you watch what's happening in Ukraine and you do the same damn thing, you're effectively the dodo birds. The universe has selected you for extinction, and that's surely what you'll get. Anybody dumb enough to look at Ukraine and then think that the United States and the East is going to come bail you out when they throw a country, an island of 25 million to 40 million people, whatever it is, somewhere in there, against a country with nuclear weapons of 1.4 million people. And they're like, yes, we're sending air defense for Taiwan. You ever read those arguments? More air defense so that Taiwan can protect itself. We're making Taiwan prickly, just like a, just like a porcupine, and make it difficult for a country of 1.4 billion people. Or I don't care how many is over a billion. Hey, Garland Nixon, yes. We're going to help you do push-ups, and we're going to give you some knives. Why is that? Because we got 550 ninjas over there, and they're all going to attack you at the same time with ninja swords and all kinds of throwing stars, and you name it, they're going to have it. And we're going to give you a baseball bat to defend yourself. And we're just doing this because we're on your side. I don't think I'll be able to defend myself from 500 ninjas with a baseball bat. Sure you will, pal. Here's the bat. Oh, by the way, you got to pay us a lot of money for that bat, but here's the bat. And Trump's like, hey, we need more money from Taiwan. We're not giving them stuff. They got to sell it. So literally, they're saying to Taiwan, we have selected you for extinction, and you're going to pay us for the privilege. Isn't that beautiful? My point being, if Taiwan buys into this one, they are effectively the dodo birds. And I don't think they are. I think the people of Taiwan are smarter than that. I think they're trying to wake up to the point that the US is just casting them into the fire. We shall see. But I think that the people from Taiwan are wise, and I don't think they're going to be able to get dragged into, extinction. But we won't know until the US finally says, okay, guys, what do you think? Time for Taiwan? Yeah, it's been around long enough. Those Taiwanese people, which are just Chinese people, those Chinese people, it's time for them to go. Okay, what do you think, Lindsey Graham? They're going to fight to the last Taiwanese. Yes, sir, we're getting us Chinese and the last Taiwanese. They're going to fight. Trust me, people of Taiwan, you're getting ahead. Anyway, let me continue. Let me continue with this. So here's my point. So when you go around Russia and you see that the Russian people are like, basically, in a nutshell, let me sum it up. They look around and they're like, man, World War II was a son of a bitch. Jesus, for good God's sake. You look at them and there is, okay, you know how I always talk about, because I study Zen, I know the difference between words and symbols, sounds and symbols, words and letters. There's a difference between those and the things that they represent, right? And that everything in the universe is ineffable. In other words, can't be described in words. You're just using the word, but the word doesn't describe that thing really. The word is not that thing. And once you understand the difference between the sound of a gong is words and concepts. When you hit a gong and you actually hear something, that's the sound of a gong. The sound of a gong describes whatever it is you're hearing, right? When you understand that. So my point is this. Just like the Chinese have a word for the inside curvature of a cup. We don't. We just say the inside. We have to describe it. They've got a word, and that word refers to the inside curvature of a cup. Here's my point. There's a word I'd have to make up myself visiting Russia, because the word would describe this. Pride, right? We are so proud that our soldiers fought, that our country stood together against these goose-stepping Nazis, right? Against this evil, and it was evil, and it is evil. But we are so proud that our country stood together to fight evil. We have great pain from the losses that we have suffered, all the people, 27 million people, men, women, and children, starvation, pain, misery. I tell you what, when I was out there today, I'm from like Maryland, where a lot of people don't realize Maryland is still south. It can be pretty warm in Maryland. I think it was like 70 degrees or something today. What's that, 20 Celsius? Okay, that's nothing unusual. I'll get back the 17th of November and I'll still be getting some 60, 70 degree days for a while. Sometimes I remember I've seen days when it was in the 70s on Christmas Day. Not always, but you can get a cold snap in Maryland, but you get a lot of 50s in the winter, a lot of 50s, 40s and 50s. Some winters you get no snow, no ice, nothing, right? It was in the 40s today in Russia, and it's not pleasant. It's cold and chilly, very muddy because they get a drizzle and rain a lot. We're riding through the countryside, and I'm looking, and you walk across the grass, and it's like just cold and just kind of miserable. Now the Russian people are very used to it. They're walking around with like it's nothing, right? And I'm like, oh, this would not be pleasant to be in a war in this crap. And then, of course, this is good times. Then come the middle of the winter, and you are screwed, blued, and tattooed, right? But my point being, what the Russians had to go through, they're proud, right? So they've got pride. There's pain. I've talked to people many Russians, not here and abroad, who have said, yes, I lost both of my grandfathers. And everybody I know lost both of their grandfathers. Everybody in my community, our town, all the men went that could possibly go. And not one of them. Think about this. You're in a town way out in somewhere, right? Excuse me, in Russia. And either your town gets smeared in a battle, excuse me, or all the men have to go off to fight. Not one of them comes back. None of them, right? So the pain that they went through, and this was town after town after town, city after city, nobody came back. The Rzhev battle, they lost a couple million people. And that was like to hold the Germans in place and make the Germans think that that was the main thrust of the fight, and to keep those Germans fighting there so they wouldn't go to reinforce the Germans in Stalingrad. So really, in what would could be considered a feint, a fake punch, right? You know, like when people are fighting. Okay, you're fighting, and if you understand self-defense, then one of the things you'll look for with a person who doesn't know what they're doing when they throw the punch, that shoulder will come up. The shoulder, and then the thing snaps, right? The shoulder. So when you throw a punch, it has to just jump out by itself. When you throw a strike, it has to jump out. Don't give away that shoulder, because if that shoulder goes first and they know that that punch is coming, it's easy to block. And sometimes with the shoulder pop, they can pop you first, right? So it just boom. You're looking for it. You're looking. It's a fake. And if watch boxers, watch people fighting, watch UFC, right? They're boom, boom, boom. And you'll see them do this, and they'll keep doing this, and they're faking those shoulders, right? It was a fake. Like, us 2 million people throwing a shoulder at the Germans, right? That was unbelievable what happened. So here's my point. Pride, that's what's in Russia. Pain, okay? And everywhere you go here, man, you can't walk past a rock that there ain't a World War II museum. You can't stumble out of a bar drunk that you won't trip over a statue of some guy who did something during World War II, right? World War II is on the minds, it's in the hearts, it's imprinted in the DNA of Russians, in the DNA of their culture. World War II is imprinted in their DNA. If you were able to extract the DNA of a Russian and you were able to blow it up, you'd see a picture of like the Battle of Stalingrad. It'd be like a hologram, you know, like a hologram where every tiny particle has everything else. It'd be like, well, let's look at some Russian DNA. What do we want to do? We're going to make some tough guys that can fight in the cold. We're going to make a super soldier, right? You take it out. Hey, we got some DNA. Let's blow it up and get a good look. Like, you grab that electron microscope. You blow it up and you're like, what do you got here? Oddly enough, a picture of an old Russian tank and some guy running around here in long underwear and in a minigun. For God's sake, these Russians are World War II to the bone, my friend. So my point is this. For a lot of people in the Jewish community, what you hear is a trauma, right? Traumatized from the Holocaust. That's a whole nother story when you talk about Israel. I didn't say Zionists, I said Israelis. I have friends who are anti-Zionist Jewish. As I said, my brother was Jewish. He converted when he was in the military. And I had friends that came over his house, and I associated with people that were like him, that were Jewish, but were anti-Zionists. But the Jewish people who are anti-Zionists, they have the Holocaust imprinted in their soul. Like, oh man, my so-and-so uncle, cousin lost everybody. He was the only one that survived. It's Norm Finkelstein. That's a legitimate imprint of historical pain and suffering, right? And it's fear because, let's face it, there was the biggest military, the most powerful military machine imaginable at that point. Not quite as powerful as the Red Army, it turned out, but powerful nonetheless, okay? And it was aimed at civilians. Kind of reminds me of an area in Gaza right now, a powerful military machine aimed at civilians. Anyway, but I digress. So imprinted on these people would be the concept of being a civilian and being mistreated, murdered, slaughtered by people who you couldn't do anything to fight against, right? You come to America and you talk to people like me. Imprinted there is the history of slavery. Again, you were in a position where you were horribly treated, dehumanized, murdered, everything, worked to death, you name it, and you had no military means to defend yourself, right? There was fighting back. There was things, and eventually some of them were able to fight against the Confederacy and things like that. But that is a civilian imprint of being on the business end of abuse by a powerful imperial machine. Okay. With the Russians, it's something different, because they kicked the ass of those who left that imprint. So they got an imprint because these Banderites, who might I add were in fact, if you follow history well enough, these people of these Nazis were both trained and funded by the Anglo-Saxon, and the same people who are back at their doorstep, who come back to their doorstep every 100 years. You know what I mean? Hey, there's the French. Let's head on over and take out the Russians. Man, it didn't work. I know the Germans. Hitler, do your thing. ain't gonna work. And so now really it's kind of a British Empire. I mean, the Russians, I guess they figure we got these three stooges called Curly, Moe, and Larry, right? Where the French came up, we had to kick their, well, it was Charles XII, the Swedes before that. So the Swedes came, slapped them down. The French came with this powerful, the largest army known to man, with Napoleon, and it ends up with the Tsar on a horse riding into Paris. Okay, and then come the Germans, and there's a Russian lady, the famous Russian lady. You know, she's directing traffic in Berlin, right? So basically, in a nutshell, when every time somebody tried the Russians, didn't work out so well. But as I said, it was not without pain. They lost a lot of people, a lot of civilians. They faced a lot of hardship, and they were able to come back. But what they learned was something. Here's what the Russians learned every single time. Number one, you can push us against the wall, but we know how to kick your ass and get out of it. And it's like this too. Also, if you ever work out, right, or you ever learn self-defense. And let's say you work out, and those of you working work out know this. You know, I love analogies. If you ever work out and you get in really good shape and get strong, right? And you learn how to work out and you get strong and agile. Then you stop working out for 5 years. When you start working out again, you'll grow quickly. You'll get in shape. Why? They call it muscle memory. If you ever learn techniques, oh, I learned how to block. Right, I learned this stuff. Yeah, these are very good blocks, but you get my point. I'm just playing, right? But anyway, whatever the case, right? So you learn a elbow hit, strike, bap, right? And you don't do anything for years. And you start training again, and you're hitting the heavy bag, and you're throwing your punches and your kicks and your blocks and all this kind of stuff, right? You're doing all of that, you'll learn it back quick. Why? Muscle memory. You've already learned that. It's imprinted deep down in there. And once you start doing it, that brain starts saying, I know how to do that. I just got to get crisp with it. Boom, 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 boom. And then one after the other, right? Boom, 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 boom. Why? Muscle memory, which is really in the brain. I think maybe it's all together. But here's my point. After you learn it once, it gets easier every time because you're going back to what you did before. After the Russians dealt with, say, the Swedes and Napoleon, they got a couple of things from that. Number one, they learned that they could kick their ass anytime they wanted to. They learned that these people really couldn't stand up to them for a number of reasons, not the least of which being because they were always fighting from a defensive stance. They were at home. Their lines of communication and their lines of support and everything were within their own country. It makes it a lot easier to fight. And they learned how to fight, how to defend themselves. And they learned that they always got to be on alert, right? You've heard that term when it comes to self-defense. Keep your head on a swivel, right? Even when you somebody attacks you, and you successfully block them, and you get their wrist, and you break their wrist, and you get them to the ground, you stomp them on the head. This person tried to kill you. You got to do what you got to do. You stomp them on the head, right? And you subdue this person. You pop up, head on a swivel, right? Head on a swivel. You subdue to this attacker. What are you doing? You're looking around. Why? Because there could be a second person. Head on a swivel, always looking, right? Is there somebody else coming? So I've subdued one. Is there somebody else? Oh, somebody coming from this. This person's got a weapon. They're swinging from behind, right? The Russians learned that. They learned how to keep their head on a swivel. Man, it's the Germans, the French, the Swedes, God knows, the Americans. Which one of these bastards are going to try me this time? Because I know somebody's coming, right? Okay, so here's my point. After the first couple of times, when they got finished with the French, they knew they could do it as a nation. They knew they may have to do it, and they knew how to do it. So their head's always on a swivel, and they're already always prepared, and they're always ready because they're like, these sons of bitches will never learn, and they're coming back again. So my point is, historically speaking, it would make no sense for anyone to assume, as they're saying, the Russians are going to attack us any day. This is what they're saying in England and France and what have you. Again, lying, knowing that it's false. The political class. The reason they're saying it over and over is because they're trying to convince the working class. They already know the truth. Why would you say something that's untrue? Right? If you ever read much on abusive and controlling people, they'll have the most beautiful girlfriend in the world. And you know what he'll say to her? You're ugly. Nobody will want you. Nobody. You could never do better than me. He actually knows the opposite and believes the opposite. He's trying to convince her of that because he feels like I'm a schmuck. How did I get this good looking babe? But he's got low self-esteem and he's a controlling person. And he's got to convince her that she's the schmuck and lucky to have him. It's a deliberate lie to confuse someone, to control someone, to put someone in a bad position. So what's happening? We've got this political class and this ruling elite in Europe deliberately lying to their people. They're using the press. They're using any means they can to convince their people as they put their people into poverty, as they put their people into danger. They are trying to convince their people it's not me you got to be afraid of, even though I'm the one that's putting you in danger. I'm the one that's stolen every dime you had. I'm the one that's cut your national health services. I'm the one that sold you out, blew up your pipelines, got you laid off, destroyed everything. Now I'm trying to confuse you as to whether you're a man, a woman, or something other term that I have invented. All of that stuff that I'm doing, and I gotta lie to you. Otherwise, if you ever know the truth, you'll probably come cut my head off, which I desperately need, right? So you've got them all doing that, and you got the Russians sitting back, saying, "We don't want to fight." You know why? The Russians remember, so they won't have to do it again. They always tell their people, remember World War II, remember what we had to go through, remember the pain that we've had. Look, there's a picture of General so-and-so on a horse. There's a statue of General so-and-so that saved us. Well, there's something of Stalin who led us as the leader, whatchamacallit. Here's a memorial to the war here, to the battle here where we lost 1 million people. Stalingrad, all around them, everywhere in Russia, there are reminders. And I don't know that there's a outward. I'll put it like this. I don't think the people and the leaders have sat around and said, "Hey, we got to remind the people." I think it's intuitive. And I think they feel the pain. So the reminders, the statues and the memorials everywhere are not to confuse, and it's not to lie like the ruling elite and like the ruling class in the West are doing. It's not to confuse. It's not to lie. It's not to obfuscate. None of that kind of stuff. It is to always remind the people, "Hey, man, these motherfuckers here are crazy as shit. We better keep an eye on them. I'm just saying they're nuts." That's one thing it's doing, right? The other thing it's doing is to remind them it is glorious. It is something to be proud of, to sacrifice yourself for your brothers, to make sacrifices for fellows. And if we as Russians are going to all have to survive together, sometimes we got to make little sacrifices or big sacrifices. But we're living next to crazy people. We are literally next to an insane asylum. It's like having a nice apartment over a crack house. "Hey, we got a nice apartment there. You're renting there, buddy." "Yeah, but the people downstairs, it's a trap house. They're selling drugs, prostitution, all kind of terrible things below us." Did anybody look at the opening ceremony of the Olympics in Paris? That's all you need to see. These people are friggin' degenerates. I got nothing against people who have sexual, what's the word I want to look for? Variations in how they see the sex and gender. Hey, look, man, I don't care about that. I don't even want to know that's your life. But what the hell was that? We don't need to know. We don't need to see that kind of stuff. Some guy running around in blue tights with unthinkable parts of his body showing in public. That's what this is about. So anyway, I say all that to say this. I don't think the Russians want any parts of that, eh? And you couldn't give them France. Not only do the Russians not want to take France, you couldn't give it to them. If you called Vladimir Putin, "Hey, Vladimir Putin, yeah, France is getting kind of stale. We're over here at the EU. It's getting kind of old. Why don't you it's yours. Just make it part of Russian Federation. You can keep the French and their friggin' baguettes and all that kind of berets. And they already got red berets, red, Soviet star. Why don't you do this? It's yours. We're the EU. We've had it up here with France. It's yours." What do you think Putin would say? "You got to be shitting me." No, thank you. You don't want those degenerate lunatics? Take a look at the president and his wife. We ain't sure who's who here. So I'm just saying, no, that would be the answer. You couldn't, not only would they not take France, not only would they not take France militarily, they wouldn't take France if you offered them France free. And then the EU said, "Well, here's what we're going to do. We'll throw in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia." And Putin would then say, "You're not making this a better offer. You're going in the wrong direction if you think we want these postage-sized countries full of goose steppers. No thanks. Leave us alone. You keep France. Do what you want with it. They're broke, and We don't even know what the hell's going on in France. Their centuries of overthrowing countries and stealing all their stuff is catching up with them because the people from all the countries they've overthrown have now shown up here. And we don't know who's French and who's Algerian, Moroccan, and every other country. France, people don't even eat baguettes any there. Not, I'll put it like this. I don't think necessarily that everybody in France or whatever who looks around and says, hey, there ain't nobody wears berets or eats baguettes anymore, and everybody looks like they're from another part of the world. It doesn't actually mean you're a jerk or a racist. And that just means you're a French person and you might like a culture with baguettes. You might like to be French, right? You got a community and you like your community. You might like it. The Russians wouldn't like a bunch of Americans showing up and saying, guess what? We're giving you 20 million Americans, do with them what you want. They'd be like, yeah, no, thank you. You keep your 20 million Americans. Wouldn't matter what race they are. They do their Russian thing and they want to stay Russian. And some French people might want to stay French, but they can't because the ruling class goes around the world stealing everything that ain't nailed down. And now all the stuff that they've stolen from these countries and brought here, the people from those countries are following the stolen stuff back to the thief's house. How about that? How about we don't get mad at the people and we say, if you stole my car and you took it home, I might come to your house to try to get my car back. And if you're in Algeria or whatever the hell country and they overthrow Syria and you're a Syrian, they overthrow your country and stole your oil, you might go home to there and say, I want my money back. How about that? Am I blaming the people who showed up there? They're victims of robbery and piracy. That's what we got. So you got people who are so bamboozled in Europe that they're like, yeah, these Muslims and Africans showing up. How dare they? And I'm like, look, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to say, I understand that you're German and you like eating schnitzel and drinking beer by the whatever the hell you drink it, liter. Fair enough. And you don't want everybody from Africa and maybe Turkey and wherever, the Middle East and who knows where, all showing up till you're now eating, I don't know, Middle Eastern dishes and African dishes. And nobody's eating schnitzel anymore. And that bothers you because schnitzel is going away. There'll be no more schnitzel eaters. Fair enough. I understand that may piss you off. And you're like, but we kind of like having a culture with schnitzel. If we don't eat schnitzel here, there'll be nobody in the world eating schnitzel and we'll disappear into the ether. That's reasonable. But they got you blaming the people who came here, not the people who created the dynamics where they were following the stolen goods home. You ought to think about it twice. Tell you what, blame the ruling elite. They're the ones to blame the people that are making the decisions that are creating that dynamic. Have you noticed something? I had a man say this to me. I'm Black American. A man say this to me. He says, Garland, I was like, what? Have you noticed? They're telling us we're supposed to hate the Russians and the Chinese. I'm like, yeah. Have you noticed? Think of all the Black folks you know. And the history in America is most Black people, their names were from the slave owner, right? That's where most Black people, you probably came from a slave owner way back when. Not all, they were free, but for the most part, if there's a Black guy named, I don't know, McGillicuddy, it ain't because he came from Ireland. It's from somebody named McGillicuddy Plantation owned the guy, and now it's a Black guy named Patrick O'Brien. His name is not Wang Yi Chen. His name is not Vladimir something or other, right? And you know why it's not? He said, you know why you can't find any Black people with Chinese and Russian names? Because the Chinese and Russians didn't kidnap them and take them to China and Russia and turn them into slaves. The ruling class here in the United States did it. And who did they hurt? They hurt the white working class worse because they brought free labor, and free labor drove down the price of regular labor, and they impoverished regular old working class white folks. But they convinced them that the Black people were the bad people. Think about this. They brought slaves in. They drove down the price of labor for the average white person, and then they convinced the average white person to hate the slaves, the worst treated people of all. Yeah, these slaves are really a problem. Oh, really? How bad a problem are they? Well, they're making me one of the richest people in history because I got a plantation with 1,000 slaves, and every one of those slaves is worth God knows what. So they're making me rich, but you poor white guy who are struggling because actually free labor drives down the price of labor, you got to blame the slaves. Why, they'll come rape your white girl wives if we let them go. That's the way it always works, right? Always blame the victim. Anyway, let me continue. That's why I say you got to understand when it comes to this issue of immigration, Who's at fault? What are the dynamics? And why are these people here? Okay, so let's get back to Russia, because that's kind of where I am. So when it comes down to it, what I'm getting at is this. We're getting towards the end. If I had to sum it all up, in Russia, what I'm learning is the Russian people have suffered. I'll put it to you like this. Some schoolyard bully picks on a lot of kids. He picks on a bunch of kids, and he picks on this one kid, and he gets in a fight with the kid, and the kid kicks his ass, right? But he technically wins the fight. Think about it. Technically, he wins the fight, but he's got black eye, blue eye, a black eye. He's got a missing tooth. He's, how you've seen people, somebody wins the fight, but barely, and they take a loss. He don't want to fight that guy again. He doesn't, because even though he won, he lost too much. Two people get in a fight for whatever reason, and one guy wins, but the other guy gets the crap beat out of him when he wins. But he technically wins. But it wasn't an easy victory. He doesn't want to fight again. He ain't going to come looking for that guy. Hey, I'll be at your house tomorrow so we can do this again. I'm kicking your ass again. No, it was too painful a loss. He doesn't want to fight again. See where I'm going with the Russians? Yes. Do these ruling elite idiot mutts in Germany, in England, in France, the Macrons, the BlackRock Merits, the weird Keir Starmer guy who God only knows what this guy's going on with, this lunatic, right? And their ilk, right? I'm not talking about the working class. The Russians know they could defeat him if need be. But their thing is this. Yeah, we fought them a couple times, but every time we fought them, it was very painful. They attacked us, we fought them, it was very painful. So the Russians' position is like this. If we need to fight, we know how to fight. If we understand the pain of fighting, so we don't want to fight because we've been through that fight. We don't even want to win. We just don't want to fight because we don't like the pain of fighting. We will if you attack us, we'll defend ourselves, but we don't want to have to do it because it's just, we don't want to go through that crap. We lost 27 million people. We don't want to lose 27 people, much less 27 million. We will if we have to, but we have no desire to. Okay. What does that mean? That means that the Russians ain't attacking the West. I said all of that. I run my stinking yap for a solid hour in the middle of the night here. I'll probably be dragging my body around tomorrow, sleep. But my point is the same. All of that to say the Russians have absolutely this much desire, a goose egg, a bagel, to go to war. So when these lying sacks of crap, some general, somebody in England, the Russians could attack us by Friday. What sense does that make? Oh, these people tell us the Russians they can't defeat Ukraine. They're weak. They're going to lose to Ukraine. They have they're fighting with shovels and washing machines. They're out of weapons. Their military industrial complex doesn't work. Their people run away when attacked. They're the weakest military. Ukraine is going to smear them. They're horrible. And they're ready to attack us tomorrow. We better be ready because they'll overrun us and go all the way to the. Well, wait a minute. Those two things are mutually exclusive. You're telling me the guy can't fight. He's an idiot. He's weak. He has his military industrial complex doesn't work. He's running out of weapons. He ran out of missiles 3 months. And I might add, the Russians are doing pretty good because if you recall, they ran out of missiles 3 months into the war. And still they found some kind of way to scrape their way through, right? All of that, as weak as they are, as ineffective as they are, as sure to lose as they are to the mighty Banderites, but yet they're going to attack all of NATO and smear NATO. Oh, did I mention that NATO is the most powerful fighting military force with the greatest technology that has ever existed, which means the Russians have no chance against them. But we better be ready because they're going to fight us anytime. Mutually exclusive, contradictory positions. And that's one of the many ways, these people are lying through their teeth intentionally. So my point is this. You go to Russia, sum it all up. You hang around, you look at all the memorials, you listen to the people, and you figure something out. Here's what you figure out. They ain't never attacking the West. The West is doing everything they can to yank their chain, to goad them into firing Oreshniks. And unfortunately, you got people running around all over the place saying, why don't the Russians push back? Why don't they fire Oreshniks? Why don't they blow up half of Germany? Why don't they do that? That's exactly what they're trying to get them to do. And might I add, because the Russians have this experience, They understand that's what they're trying to get them to do, and they ain't going to do it. They know that it's a trap. They know that they're trying to goad people, the Russians, into fighting so they can try to drag the Americans in, because they know the only chance they got, which is none, is the Americans. So they're like, look, Russians, would you throw some missiles at us? The Russians, nope. Blow up NATO headquarters. Russians are not doing it. EU headquarters. Russians, no. Please do something. Fire some Oreshniks. Attack Poland. Throw some missiles at us. We'll do anything we can to get you to do something so that we can say that's it. Article 5. All right, America, come on in here. I mean, we got no troops. We got no military. We got nothing. American, send your boys in here to die on Russia's border. Bad news for you, you poor freaking idiots, ruling class. America ain't coming. That ain't what they do. That's why it's a proxy war. You, my friends, are the expendable cannon fodder. And if you think old Uncle Sam is going to come running in to save you, let me tell you something. I'll tell you what I know. If the Russians flattened Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania tomorrow, right? Flattened them with Oreshniks, nuked them into non-existence, destroyed everything. And NATO said, all right, it's Article 5. Americans, come on in. The Americans go, I mean, there wasn't that many people. They were like small countries anyway. I mean, they were friends. We liked them. We're sad to see them gone. We'll put up a memorial to them and all that kind of stuff. But right now, I got to go. We got a couple things we got to knock out here. Give us a call in a while. Hey, France, Germany, look, the Russians are nothing. They're weak. You handle our light work. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We got a plan. France, England, Germany. It's terrible what they've done to Estonia and Lithuania. Well, the Russians flattened them all. You guys, you go handle them and give us a call when you get finished with the Russians. And we'll come. It's like the old joke about the two guys hunting. You ever heard that one? These two hunters go in the woods. And they're going to hunt grizzly bear, right? One of them, they wake up in the morning. They've been drinking all night. They wake up in the morning. They're in a cabin, out in the forest. You have a cabin. You open the front, you walk in. There's a fireplace, things like that. And there's a back door, right? Outside, plumbing, shall we say. So they wake up real early after drinking. And one of the hunters says, I'm going to go out early looking for a grizzly. He says, okay. The other one's like, man, I got to sleep it off a little bit. I'll see what I can do. Okay. So the one hunter goes out. He sees a grizzly bear. I got him now. Aims at the grizzly bear, shoots the grizzly bear, pow, but it only wings him. Just right over the bear's shoulder. Ouch, the bear says, and he looks up at him. Who, you gonna die now, right? That's the bear would say it, but if he could talk, that's what he'd say in bear language. He actually growls, but in bear language, that means it's just grass now, buddy. You're gonna be bear poop. Okay, the bear takes off running after the guy in this particular story, and the guy turns around, and he's running back, right? He gets to the cabin. He opens the door. He runs in, and he looks, and the bear's charging at behind him. He's going to come right in the cabin and kill him. And the other guy kind of wakes up, and he goes, hey, did you get a grizzly bear? And the guy says, throws him his knife, and he's running out the door. He says, yeah, it'll be here in a second. He says, I already got one. He says, you go ahead and skin that one, and I'll go out and get another one. He runs out the door, right? That's it. So the bottom line is, that's what the U.S. would do. They just say basically to France and Germany, if Poland and Lithuania and all these other little postage stamp places got flattened by the Russians, they say to the French and the Germans and the UK, look, you guys go ahead and handle the Russians. When you get done destroying and wiping out the Russians, give us a call. We'll come help you clean up the mess, and we'll pump the oil and gas when you get finished destroying the Russians. Have a nice day. No, the Americans never come and help. But the ruling class in Europe hasn't figured that out, and they're trying to sacrifice themselves at the altar of Russophobia. And I don't think they're going to be successful anyway, because they're in a war with America. Trump. About Trump. Not that he has that much power, but one thing I'll tell you about Trump that's obvious. He hates Zelensky, and he probably hates the leaders of Russia and France and the UK even more, but Trump ain't making but so many decisions. But that is a factor. It's a factor. It's a factor that the Americans are looking elsewhere, and they're done. The Americans are like, yeah, but we kind of lost that one. The only thing the Americans are thinking is how they can get out of it without an L. How can we get out of this without taking an L? That's why they're like, can we put the L on the Europeans? Yeah, let's get out of here, give them some weapons, sell them to them, and they can take the L, and we'll just say, darn, you Europeans, we left you to deal with our light work, and look what you did. You screwed it all up. All right, we'll come talk to the Russians, and we'll get a treaty. That's what they'll do. And then they'll make a deal with the Russians like, hey, how about we work together for oil in the Arctic? And the Russians, okay, whatever. Maybe we can pump a couple of gallons of oil in the Arctic. And they'll be like, sorry, Europe, boy, they really kicked your ass. Ooh, that is going to leave a mark. Okay, we're going to be over here making a deal with the Russians now that you lost to them. But we'd love to sell you some more weapons. Americans will use and abuse these idiots. But, that's what happens to a sucker. As P.T. Barnum said, it's a crime against God and nature to allow a sucker to keep his money. At any rate, so that's where I am. That's where I am. That's what I've learned here. I've learned in a nutshell, if you want to fight the Russians, you got to come to them. This business about the Russians are going to fight you. They don't want to fight. They're trying to avoid a fight. And if you want to fight them, you got to come to them, which is one of the principal reasons that you will always lose. Your supply lines will be running all the way back to the English Channel, and they ain't got no supply lines. They don't have supply lines. They're home. You don't have supply lines at home. You know what you got? Food. When you walk over to the refrigerator to get a sandwich, hey, I think I'm going to get a sandwich. What do you want, honey? Oh, I don't know. I'll have bologna. How about you? Tuna. Sounds good. That ain't a supply line. You're home. And when you come attack the Russians, they're effectively getting a sandwich. Hey, we need some more guns. All right, let's just make them. Hey, we need food. They've got these cans. That's what they were called, a soldier's porridge. That's what the soldiers say. Hey, the soldiers need porridge. All right, I'll get a pot going and we'll make some. You don't have to ship it up to Ukraine from the UK. You just got to make some in your kitchen and eat it because it's already there. Right? And you'll always lose to a fight that's doing that. So in a fight with somebody where you're going to their home, look, in classic military concepts, if you are fighting an entrenched enemy, adversary, you need a minimum of 3-to-1 forces. And that was in the old days when they didn't have Oreshniks. 3-to-1 ain't gonna get it done now when they got Oreshniks and S-400s and things of that nature in Kinzhals. 3-to-1 ain't even gonna get it done because 3-to-1 real quick gonna turn into some numbers far worse than that. So and you're attacking, going to Russia where it's a little nippy, weather's not always good, a little bit of mud, and you've already demonstrated that your military hardware, shall we say, could use some improvements in some area. So here's my point. Thanks a lot, everybody. Somehow, for some reason, they decided, I believe, come on, what sense does it make? I come and turn on my computer and I use various means to try to get on YouTube, don't work. Try my iPad, don't work. Then I'm like, well, I'll use StreamYard, which I'm on StreamYard setting things up. StreamYard's working fine. And I try everything else, don't work. Oh, hell, StreamYard works. I'll use StreamYard. I go back to StreamYard and I can't even sign in StreamYard. Nothing. Oh, it's not working for some reason. I get some coincidence. Maybe not. So I don't know. I may not be able, I think they've forgotten one. That's what I think. While they're sitting there watching right now, going, oh, God. There's probably a fight right now in NSA and the CIA. They're scrapping, man. They're like, who is the idiot? Somebody's like in charge saying, I want everybody in my office right now. This Nixon guy, he's in Moscow. You understand that? Yeah. And this guy runs his friggin' mouth. And I thought I told you that he wasn't supposed to be able to go live tonight. Didn't I? Yes, sir, you did. Why am I watching him on YouTube right now? I hate you people. All of you, get out. Get out of my office and don't come ever in here again. You're all going to be fired. Who forgot he had a cell phone, of all things? He is an American. He is a person. He's got a cell phone. Yes, you shut off StreamYard. Okay, you shut him out of YouTube on everything else. But somebody forgot to shut him out on his cell phone. And I want to know who is in charge of it. And I want to know by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, because I'm going to personally wrap my fingers around his stinking, filthy little throat and squeeze until his tongue's hanging out. Who was it? And they're all going to go, that's what they're going to do. Somebody messed up royally. And here I am, hooray! And so is another 604 people. So I don't know how long this is going to be up. I know it's up now. And what I'd like everybody here to do, certainly thank you. We got some people have donated because God knows I'm going to need a few dollars after this trip if I'll ever be able to get on again. But, oh, and by the way, isn't it interesting? Can't get on YouTube. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll do a Facebook Live. And I was able to, and I went in and I checked and I could do Facebook Live. So I'm like, oh, I'll do a Facebook Live. Let me go back into Facebook. I went back into Facebook, couldn't get in. Oh, hey, I've got my iPad here. Open my Apple iPad. Can't get into YouTube. But somebody messed up royally. Somebody left this open. Anyway, here we are, guys and girls. And that's pretty much, I'm not into the whole Brigitte Macron stuff. So we're gonna stick with guys and girls for now. I'm an older guy, you know what I mean? I can't count that high. I have 2 when it comes to it. 2 is good enough for me. I had a daughter and I had 2 options, M and F. I went with F. Didn't seem like I had another option. So I go, people talk about gender, I go with sex. Sex, male or female. Check 1. Gender, I don't really know what that is, to be quite frank with you. And I don't want to get in an argument over the definition of a woman, because I know the definition of a woman. We all do. It's a noun. It's nothing more. A woman is a noun. Man, it's a noun. That's the definition of a woman. If anybody asks you what's the definition of a woman, just say a noun. No, but I mean, what is a woman? It's a noun. Oh, I know. When I make that sound woman, or I write these scribbly little letters that you look and say woman, you want to know what I'm referring to. You don't want to know what a woman is because it's a noun. You want to know what I'm referring to when I make the sound woman or I write out the word woman. And I ain't getting into that. I'm just going to make the sound. You figure it out, buddy. That's up to you. So I ain't into all of that, but what I am into is getting some rest. I got to get up in the morning and go running all over creation with Scott Ritter. We got stuff to do, people to see, places to go. And so I want to thank everybody. First of all, I don't have my thing scrolling across the bottom because I can't get in the StreamYard. Thank you, NSACIA. But if you can find me at patreon.com. Thank you to my Patreon subscribers, people who you can find me on, what else? Buy Me a Coffee. You got PayPal. You have, I can't even remember. Cash App is late. And of course, my P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland, 21061. And all you have to do, if you want to do any of those, is just go to any of my other videos and you'll see it scrolling across the bottom, but I can't do that here and for obvious reasons. But thanks a lot, everybody. Hey, I had a lot of fun. This video was a blast. Thank you very much. And I'm going to now try to figure out how to shut this video down. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to give it a shot. But it'll probably be all night. I'll probably be like, the video will be working. I won't even know it. I'll be laying over there naked, laying on the bed, getting, taking a shower, half naked, like, oh man, I'm glad that video's off. People will be watching going, oh my God, look at that, Carl's naked. He's getting into bed. What a terrible thing, right? Yikes. Others will be going, oh boy, that guy needs to work out. He's getting a little soft around the middle. But whatever the case, how about this? I'll just plug it in and like put it place down and put a blanket or something over it so that even if I can't figure out how to turn it off, no one will have to suffer through seeing me walking around, plopping around here with a towel wrapped around my waist, trying to put some soap on my filthy body before I get into bed. Thank you. Share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks for all the fun. We had a lot of good laughs and stuff, and we'll talk tomorrow. I'm out. Don't forget, share it. I'm done. Because let's face it, I can't go on Rumble. I can't go on Rockfin. I can't go on YouTube right now. God knows. Well, I can go on this. Who knows how long that'll last. Share it, share it, share it. I'm out. All right, let me figure this out. Well, let me try this. Hold on, let me try it. There's an X. Oh, there we go. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Well, all I had to do was hit the X. Was it that easy? I'm out.